The stream live now, and the stream is live.
Call to order, councillors. Please take your seats and turn your mobile devices to silent. It is 9 a.m. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting on the 18th of March 2025. Council meetings are open to the public and live streamed to enable members of the public to observe Council in its decision-making process. It is a requirement that I advise all present that the meeting is being live streamed, and I advise all present that your presence at this meeting is taken as consent that your image and your voice may be recorded and broadcast to the public by our live stream. Recordings of this meeting will remain on Council's website for at least 12 months. Any other form of audio or visual recording of the meeting requires prior permission. In the chambers today, we have Councillor Noel Selby, Councillor Arthur Bain, Councillor Dean Saul, Councillor Julie Coburn, Councillor Adam Matchett, Councillor Ben Pakes, Councillor Alexandra Wyatt, and Councillor Annette Lawrence. Staff attending today are Mr. Michael Jackson, Acting General Manager, Mr. Wesley Trotter, Director of Utilities, Ms. Lisa Davies, Acting Director Corporate and Commercial, Mr. Daniel Thorogood, Acting Director Operations and Planning, Vicky Thomas, Acting Group Manager Governments and Information Services, and Talia Randall, Governance Advisor. Welcome, councillors, General Manager, council staff, and members of the public, and anybody watching our live stream. I will now move to the opening prayer. Arthur.
In our deliberations today, may we have the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Apologies for the earlier audio issues for everyone in the meeting. We've sorted that out now. Councillor Lawrence, will you now give the welcome to country?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I want to warmly welcome everybody here today as we gather on sacred and unceded lands of the Dunghutti people. As a proud First Nations woman, I have been granted permission to provide this welcome, and I do so with the deepest respect for my elders and of this country, past, present and emerging. Their wisdom, their resilience and stewardship of this land remain a guiding light for us all. This land holds stories that stretch back to tens and thousands of years, stories of strength, knowledge and a connection to country that we must honour in every decision we make in this chamber. It is our responsibility to act in a way that reflects these values of truth, fairness and integrity. Today I welcome not just your presence, but your attention, your reflection and your commitment to ensuring that this council operates in the respect for culture and transparency in its actions. While I speak to you as somebody deeply connected to this land, I also speak as a representative of this community. Holding this community to the highest standard of accountability, I must use this moment to speak truthfully about the challenges we face. As I speak here, I do so with the authenticity and resolve. I am who I say I am, and I bring my whole self to this role. To every member of this council and to the community watching, I extend this welcome not just to country, but to accountability. Let this meeting be a space where truth is spoken, where cultural respect is upheld, and where those who claim to lead do so with honour and transparency. This is Dunghutti land, and I will always stand firm in my responsibility to protect its values, its people, its future, and the community. The community is watching, and I will not back down to advocating for what is just, fair and culturally respectful. Always was, always will be Dunghutti land, owned by Dunghutti people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. We now have the acknowledgement of servicemen, women and families. Councillor Selby.
Council acknowledge the sacrifice made by Australian servicemen and women and their families in particular, those who gave their lives in defence of freedom we enjoy today.
Thank you, Councillor Selby. We now move to apologies and applications for leave. There are none. We now move to item 5, which is the confirmation of minutes, and the recommendation is before you. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pakes, a seconder. Councillor Saul. Any dissent? There is none. I declare it carried. We now move to item 6, which is disclosures of interest. Councillor Bain.
Yes, I'd like to declare a non-significant, non-pecuniary conflict of interest in item 10.3 as I have a casual social relationship with the proponent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Are there any other disclosures? I'll disclose an interest in item 10.4. This is non-pecuniary and non-significant as I have family that live on Torumby Road. As there are no more disclosures, I'll now move to items passed by exception. There is a recommendation before you. Before we move the motion or take questions, do councillors want to remove any items so they may speak to them or vote against them? Councillor Bain.
I would like to remove, sorry, just a minute, I'm getting there. Remove the, my apologies, I'm just on the wrong page. Items by exception, I would like to remove 10.4 and yep, that's it, just 10.4, the proposed, the disaster ready fund round 3.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. If there's no more items to be removed, do any councillors have questions on items in the block? Councillor Wyatt.
Yes, please. Thank you. Can you hear me? Sorry. I would like to ask questions on 10.3, the planning proposal. In regard to two questions, actually. I've asked questions before about, I've got it in the council portal about biodiversity offsets, but I would just want to know whether if this proceeded to a development application, would there be a consideration for biodiversity offsets needed in this proposal? Because if you look at that map, there's a bit of bushland there.
Mr. Jackson. Oh, Mr. Thorogood.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, if the proponent proceeds to lodge development applications on this land, then biodiversity is certainly a consideration that would need to be made as part of the development application. Whether or not offsets would be required would depend on whether there was any impact on biodiversity that rose to the level that required offsets to be provided. So it would be a matter that would be considered at the DA stage.
Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah, okay. And the second question is the required. So in the planning proposal, it talks about a road requirement. So the requirement to improve the roadway entrance, would this be a developer contribution to pay for that in its entirety, or would that be a council expense?
Mr. Jackson.
The specifics of that will be worked out through the DA, but in the majority of cases, the applicant will undertake those works. Yeah.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. Do we have any other questions on any other items in the block? As we don't, this is our recommendation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Saul, do I have a seconder? Councillor Matchett. Is there any dissent? There is none. I declare it carried. Well, all right, we'll now move to item 9.1, which is local traffic committee meeting minutes, the 25th of February 2025. Do we have a mover? Councillor Pakes, seconder, Councillor Selby. Councillor Pakes, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I wouldn't. Yeah, I'd just like to commend it to the council and also thank the local traffic committee for their work. They're doing some great work in our area, and yeah, keep going.
Thank you, Councillor Pakes. Are there any questions on this motion? There is none. Is there any debate? There is none. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is none. I declare it carried. We'll now move to item 9.2, Australia Day Awards and Citizenship Ceremony. Do I have a mover? Councillor Selby. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Selby, would you like to open debate?
Yeah, I think we have brought this up in briefings and that, but I think it was a very successful day. I think everybody put in. The only problems we had were with the one lot of awards, the local hero, and I think that'll be fixed for next year without any problems.
Thank you, Councillor Selby, and I thank yourself and Councillor Lawrence as representatives of council on that committee. Do we have any questions on this motion? Do we have any debate? Oh, Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, one question, through you, Madam Mayor, to Noel and Annette. Is there any,
Councillor Selby and
Councillor
Councillor.
Selby and Councillor Lawrence, is there any move to have sport included as a sports person of the year, included as an Australia Day award, potentially as a senior sports person of the year and a youth sports person of the year?
Councillor Selby.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I brought that up at the last meeting and I will pursue it at the first meeting we have for next year's. As you said, yeah, a senior and a junior. I think it's a great idea. Let's look at those people. They've been forgotten for a while. And if memory serves me correctly, I think that in past years, those awards were there and they've been removed. So hopefully we can bring them back. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Selby. Councillor Pakes, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just to follow up, to clarify around the senior, perhaps just a sports person of the year. It's not senior.
I think you knew what I meant.
Councillor Bain.
Yeah, my question is, I've received information from staff that the cost of delivering the Australia Day event is, circa $20,000. $10,000 of that comes from a Australia Day Community Grants program, and roughly $10,000 from council. I'm wondering what the process could be to include in any future evaluation that we are public and open and transparent about the cost, and that we include. I understand that in the costings that I got given, that the staff overtime costs were included, but in future, if we could put in an estimate of the aggregate cost of staff time and include, I note too that we saved some money this year by doing in-house printing and photography, but we could also, if that would be possible, to include those costs. So not, obviously not retrospective, but in future on, what would the process be? Would I need to amend this motion, or is it just enough to have raised the issue?
Ms Davies.
Through you, Madam Mayor, certainly Councillor Bain, we could look to provide cost estimates for those things in future. I can make a note of that. There's nothing further required. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wyatt, you had a question.
Yes, I did. I just wanted to, through to Councillor Selby, sorry, if I may. You mentioned, I didn't attend. I had a death in my family. You mentioned problems with the local hero. I mean, problem doesn't have a really good word association. Could you just outline what you mean by that, please?
Councillor Selby, I can also speak to this if you'd like me to.
Yeah, sure.
There was just, I guess, in the committee's deliberations, there was 8 local hero applicants and 6 local heroes were awarded, and it just didn't seem fair and equitable. And there was some feedback from community around that, so we're taking that on board, and we'll make our deliberations a bit more succinct and different next year. Councillor Lawrence.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Councillor Selby said around just around the staff, and commend everybody for their work that they did in the Australia Day committee, and yeah, just wanted to say thank you to the staff, and yeah, it was a really good day.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Is there any more debate or anyone wanting to speak for this motion or against it? No. Councillor Selby, you can close debate.
Done.
I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. I declare it carried. We'll now move to item 10.1, Community Strategic Plan 2045, Your Future and Community Engagement and Participation Strategy, a really important document for this term of council. Do we have a mover? Councillor Wyatt, do we have a seconder? Councillor Matchett, I will, Councillor Wyatt, would you like to open debate?
Yes, I would. Thank you. First up, I want to say thank you for all of the work in putting that together and the consultation that has been done with councillors. I feel this is, I think, my third time going through integrated planning and reporting documents, and I feel that the consultation with councillors is getting better. So I thank you. I thank you for that. And I note that these are going out. These are draft. So I'm not going to get into discussing the ins and outs of the plans that itself, but I would like to say, noting the recommendation 1 is to note the community engagement undertaken to inform the draft plans, and the feedback processes are listed in the business paper, and attached are the 2 surveys, the Micromax survey and the also Macleay survey. I'm confident that the Micromax survey is fit for purpose, just based on the statistical degree of confidence and the point at which statistical representation sort of just repeats, and there's no data, there's no new data. However, I do have some concerns with the community survey shaping our future, the Your Say Macleay one. And my issues are around the composition of the questions and the number of surveys completed and the demographics. I mean, some enlightening things from the demographics is that 77% of responses are from people over the age of 50. There's only 18% of responses from the age of 35 to 50, and there's only 5% of responses under the age of 34. 72% are single households, so they're not related people, they're not partnered, and they're not families. And 43% did say that they were families. 52% thought that council could gain some more income, but there was no comment on what that other would be. And 47% don't want to pay any more for anything, which is, I think that's just a straight out, for me, a no-brainer. And 76% want to be engaged. Their preferred method of engagement is online surveys, which is contradictory to what we hear time and time again. So I just pulled out those interesting statistics there, noting that it's a survey of 169. So I'm not really sure that a survey can really tell us enough about the entire community, its needs and its wants. To me, it's too biased for older people without families or dependents, and I just don't think it's specific enough. In the public forum yesterday, Mr. Keane spoke on community consultation on many occasions, and I agree with the survey questions, and I would like to see some different questions that are a bit more targeted. Maybe we could have a discussion about this at a council briefing at some point. I mean, during my previous term, I agree with the comments about community engagement too. And I have witnessed great difficulty in engaging people. I mean, during my previous terms, I've been really disappointed with the responses to the documents on public exhibition, and I've been to catch-ups at Southwest Rocks, Cundamone, Crescent Head, Smithtown. With the exception of Southwest Rocks, they've always been really poorly attended. And in fact, during both iterations of the SRV, I've been in a room where there's been more council staff than councillors, particularly here in Kempsey. I did ask in my election processes to a group of people in remote areas, I said, what does good community consultation look like for you? And they said door knocking. I thought, well, I personally don't have capacity to door knock 1,400 people right across this shire. I just don't. I don't know what else to do, so I do look forward to people really having some thoughts about what does good community consultation look like for them. So all I can do is stress with these documents going out, for those 169 people that did engage, if you encourage 10 others to complete that survey, that would be a 12% increase in the amount of people. And if you encouraged, go and knock on someone's door that's under 30 and ask them to complete it, and then ask them to go and complete it. So yeah, because last time we had 10 responses. I got this email the other day and I'll repeat it. It says, this is the email. You were all elected to look after the best interests of the Shire. The directors work for the Shire. Stop being hoodwinked and start having a say in what goes on. Righto, clear. I hear that. But this is a two-way street. Provide feedback. I understand that council needs to improve its community engagement. I've heard this for 4 years. It's been a major issue for 4 years. So here's a plan for community consultation. It's on public display. Please have your say. Here's the community strategic plan. Same thing. It's on public display. Please can we hear from under 30s, under 40s, under 20s? And for those of you that have families that are teenagers, it's really important because it's your children and your teenagers, adolescents, who don't have a voice in this decision making, but they sure will inherit these decisions and these outcomes. So I commend this. I'm happy to support it, but please engage.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Do we have any questions? Oh, sorry, Wyatt. I don't know where that came. Councillor Saul, do you have a question?
No, Madam Mayor.
You-
No question, I had a comment.
So that I'll leave that for speeches. Do we have questions yet at the moment? No. You may make your comment then. Oh, Councillor Pakes. Sorry, Councillor Saul.
Apologies, Madam Mayor. I am interested to hear from the General Manager his thoughts on, sorry, the Acting General Manager, his thoughts on what the new General Manager may have and what potential impact they may have on this policy, just to put it to the community. So if a new General Manager, when a new General Manager is selected, what impact do you think they'll have?
Mr. Jackson.
The community strategic plan is the reflection of the community's wishes. So as a document, I can't speak for a new General Manager, but given the timing of their arrival in the next few months, they will not have a massive impact on this. This is a document for the community and the councillors. The plans that follow, obviously, by the end of June, we council need to have adopted all of the IPNR documents, the operational plan, the delivery plan. So at this point in time, I wouldn't see a new General Manager coming in and completely rewriting those documents in the space of a couple of weeks, effectively. And obviously that's something that the councillors and the community wouldn't expect either, and would find it hard to accept for someone new to come in and just completely rewrite those documents. The community strategic plan is an evolutionary document, so it's evolved from the previous term of council, and there's reference in there to a lot of the consultation previously which got it to this point, and then the new surveys to check in, and then this exhibition period to go further and check in further with the community. So essentially, yes, I'd suspect on these documents in particular, sort of minimal interaction and change would be expected.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I think Councillor Wyatt mentioned earlier we have difficulty engaging with younger people. I know of two occurrences where I was told directly that they had a phone call from a survey company, a Micromex, and they wouldn't talk to them. They just hung up. It's very hard to engage when people won't engage back. And being a younger people, often they don't want to be involved. That's where it's difficult. So the point is, the older folk seem to be more engaged, but we have to take it on its merits. If they don't want to talk or be involved, they can't be made to do so. So we can only go on the advice we're given from the survey. And I must say, I was very pleased to see that the roads again were number one, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. I do believe that council did get quite a bit creative with gathering feedback with the new NINDA Dream Academy with our school leaders presentation. So there was other avenues in terms of gathering that feedback as well. Councillor Selby, then Councillor Bain.
Just a suggestion through you, Madam Mayor. I can't see why us as councillors can't put this up on our own sites and make the community more aware of it. You know, like we haven't done that before. Let's do it this time. And if we all do it, we may get a better result from the survey. I think it's worth a shot.
Thank you, Councillor Selby. Councillor Bain.
Yes, Murrumby, Madam Mayor. I'd like to speak to the community engagement and participation plan. I welcome the combination of the two documents to increase efficiency and understanding, that we're not having like that. The two separate documents are now one. I think that's a really great idea. I take on board what Mr. Kay said last night about maybe that they're a little bit text heavy, and the potential. I mean, there are infographics in there, but maybe a executive summary at the beginning that could make it more accessible. I really appreciate that in there that there's a really clear time frame of the process of these integrated planning and reporting documents, so that the community are aware of that we can't make significant changes once all of this work's been done. If we want to make significant changes, those changes have to come in the next cycle, not not so much in this cycle. I hear when I'm listening to community that they want to move. I'm looking at the IAP's, the spectrum levels of impact, that, you know, we're good at informing, we're somewhat good at consultation, but what I'm hearing is community want to be more involved. And I understand that when we look at the levels of collaborate and empower, that gets very costly on staff time and commitment of resources. But I'm wondering if through things like the advisory groups, we could create more, put some more energy into the third level of the spectrum. I echo what Councillor Selby has said, that it's a really positive role that councillors need to be actively promoting engagement and feedback. And I believe, or at least I know that Councillor White and I have done that in the past. That when things go out on submission, we really push it on our personal social, on our social media, that people do become involved and make a submission. And in terms of responding to what Councillor Saul said about young people, kind of some of them are hanging up. My impression that I get from many young people that I speak to is that they feel it's a bit hopeless, and what's the point? They don't feel valued, they don't feel listened to, and we need to find a strategy to address that, to change that perception, because it is a perception. It's not necessarily a reality that we don't want to hear them, but it's a perception that their point of view doesn't matter, so why bother? And we need to change that. So I support this. I think it's great as a draft, and I look forward to encouraging feedback from community on both the strategic plan and the community engagement and participation plan. Marangbu, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Councillor Pakes.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I endorse Councillor Selby and Councillor Bain's idea to use the councillors' social media pages to promote engagement. And I probably would ask a question of Ms Davies around, is it possible to have multiple posts that we can push through our social media pages to get that coverage, and not just one, like multiple, one every week for those engagement times, because I think it'll be effective. If it increases it by 5%, it's worth it. And it's a few clicks. So it's a really simple way for us to help get more people into that age group, because I know a lot of the people that I'm connected to on Facebook are in that demographic we're not connecting to. So yeah, that'd be my question.
Ms Davies.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Pakes, certainly we'd be happy to support councillors in getting further information about these out to the community. We have had some success with that recently, obviously, and appreciate any support you can offer. So I'll have a chat with the communications team and we can get that through to you.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, I just wanted to echo my fellow councillors with what they've just mentioned, and also put forward any support that I can towards engaging community and young people in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more debate?
Yes.
Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd just like to congratulate staff on putting this together. I did also listen to the public forum last night where Mr. Kay spoke about a fresh start, if you like. It'd be great if we did get any feedback from the younger community in particular, because obviously we're already engaged with that older demographic, around whether it's the nature of the document that disengages them. I'm not sure whether that's it. The document has looked quite similar for an extended period of time. I think the disaster risk profile for Kempsey Shire as an inclusion is also a really great idea, because at this level it's important that as a community we understand the risks that we have within our community. So just that feedback around, I would really encourage as many people as possible to put in submissions around this, and on whatever level that may be, whether it's just about the wording of things, whether it's about the look of the document, any feedback, I think, will really assist in shaping this into something that perhaps is more contemporary, whatever that might be, so we can engage that broader community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Is there any more debate? Councillor Wyatt, would you like to close debate?
Yeah, thank you for the debate and the comments. Fantastic. I close debate.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. I declare it carried. We'll now move to item 10.2, draft flood policy. Do we have a mover? Councillor Bain, do we have a seconder? Councillor Wyatt. Councillor Bain, would you like to open debate? Or move the motion, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to congratulate staff for the work that they've done in putting this together. I think it's a really comprehensive document, and it's responsive to the reality of the times that we're facing with, we're looking at, I think with ex-tropical cyclone Alfred, $1.2 billion price tag to the economy. We need to really clearly think about how we are doing their sustainable development and setting that long-term foundation for flood resilience. It's something that we need to, there's always been aware of in our Shire, but within the increasing ocean temperatures, we can expect cyclones to come further south in the future. So well done, Kempsey Shire Council staff, and I commend this to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. And just noting your mention to Tropical Cyclone Alfred, I was a little bit quick earlier, and I would just like to take this time, sorry to interrupt debate, but I'd just like to take this time to thank all of the staff for their efforts in Tropical Cyclone Alfred last week. It was a very long, week, lots of changes to the forecast, and just lots and lots of hours put in. So I'd really particularly like to thank the infrastructure and delivery team and the utilities team. Just countless hours opening floodgates and closing floodgates. I think sometimes they're up at 1 a.m. I went into the Rural Fire Service on a Sunday to see a very tired looking Dylan Reeves and a very chipper Fiona Newberry. And I just want to thank particularly Mr. Michael Jackson, Mr. Daniel Thorogood, Miss Lisa Kennedy, Miss Fiona Newberry for their work at the EUC. So I just want to put that in there as well. But do we have any questions on this flood policy now? Sorry. Councillor Pakes.
And I think that my question probably is specifically around the community feedback that might come from this document. It is a document that will affect any development on the floodplain anywhere on the floodplain plus the fringe areas, and how we communicate that. So my question is around the communication of this document to the people who live in these areas, and are we going to communicate it formally? How are we going to do that to get the information out there? I know this is a draft, but ultimately once endorsed, it will add significant construction costs. There is lots of implications to this if you live on the floodplain, which is a large percentage of our Shire.
Mr. Jackson.
Once this document's been on public exhibition, and if it comes back and is adopted in whatever form by council, obviously it will be step one, put on council's website, and it will be referred throughout various planning. If any planning proposals come through, they'll be referred to this document as part of that process. In terms of putting it out to all people on the floodplain, it very much affects ongoing development on the floodplain. So it's not intended to be issuing a mail out on this to all parties on the floodplain. However, because it is primarily a development related document. So yeah, all in all, it will be put through council social media and through the normal channels that council use, but there won't be a specific mail out on this particular document.
Mr. Thorogood.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, just to add to that and to clarify, as we discussed last time, we were talking about the floodplain risk management study and plan. The flood planning levels which are outlined in this document, including the predictions for sea level rise and the 2100 climate change predictions, they've already been adopted by the prior council. So once again, this policy does not increase those flood planning levels. It reflects the flood planning levels that were adopted by the previous council.
Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, I suppose I'd link my question then back to having social media output that we can put out on this specifically, not just one post, but multiple posts on this, so people know. And we've done our due diligence to get the information out there at this stage, so people can have input to it. So I'd ask for that. So, and basically, I've raised this yesterday about the photo on the front page. I don't endorse a 49 flood photo on the front page of this document. I think that's in no way a reflection of our current hydraulic modelling with mitigation, millions and millions of dollars of mitigations being done. Let's get a photo of a mitigated Macleay River, because that's what we have. We are in a mitigated Macleay River, not a 49 flood Macleay River. So that photo may be historical, but it's not accurate to current flooding occurrences.
Mr. Jackson.
I guess just as was noted previously, the 49 flood is currently the flood of record. However, there's no need to have a photo on the cover sheet of a flood policy. In fact, we can do away with the cover sheet altogether if it causes concern.
Do you have another question?
And I just want to clarify, I endorse a photo on the front, but I endorse a mitigated photo on the front, as in a 2001 photo, because that's the highest mitigated flood we've had since 49.
Do we have any more questions? Councillor, do you want to speak for the motion? Councillor Wyatt?
Speak for the motion. Questions? I don't have any questions. Okay, thanks. Yep. Thank you. I am pleased to support this policy, and I too congratulate all the staff and the external specialists and the community advisory group for all their work in this space, in this sector. And I just want to thank what's currently acting manager Daniel Thorogood's team, and to Caro and her team for leading this work, and the knowledge and the skills that they've brought to this team and to the table. My learning curve has increased, as always. As in confirming the context of this policy, it establishes controls, development controls and planning procedures, and it brings together state and national guidelines linking our strategic work, such as the 2024 flood risk study and plan for the floodplain. And the intent is to better protect public and privately owned assets, reduce the flood risk, and create more resilient development and development practices. For me, it seems to be, well, I think it is, the final piece of the flood study, the hydrological modelling, the literature reviews, research, community participation, flood action planning, and it ensures that Kempsey Shire Council is paying attention and acting on state and federal government policies, which if we don't do that, it really does place us in risk of not being able to get funding and possibly support in the future, and possibly even getting national declarations, disaster declarations. And I think personally it just makes us look a bit idiotic and could expose us to legal negligence. So I think it takes all of that big picture and just enables people to make informed choices. And even if you're ideologically opposed to climate change or a denier, this is a precautionary approach to managing those risks, protecting people's lives and their assets, as well as protecting public assets, all of which are designed with the intent of resilience, safety, financial sustainability, and economic security. So I am totally on board with this risk management approaches to inform decision making. It's very emotive and very contentious for a whole range of issues. And I really look forward to seeing the results of the public exhibition process. So I'm totally on board with this and happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor White. Do we have any more debate? There is no debate. Councillor Bain. Councillor Coburn.
I just had a question, actually, in regard to the funding that was received for the resilience canopy group. I believe there was about $400,000 that council received through a grant fund. I know some of that project has been delivered. I just wonder if there's still any funding left in that space, and whether or not this new document can be reflected in any of those workshops, which I know involved staff, members of the community that were interested in localised on-the-ground resilience training and education.
Ms Davies?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Coburn, yes, that is an ongoing project at the moment. We do have a number of community representatives who have completed the Resilience Canopy training, and we are actively working with, I believe, 3 grant recipients under that program. Can you just clarify for me when you say, can this be reflected in future training? Do you mean in terms of education around resilience for the community?
I just mean in light of this, the draft flood policy and the changes that will impact community, just to make sure that if there is that resilience training and education that's happening, that people are aware there has been a change to that policy. To me, it's just another avenue for education within the community.
Okay, I might take that on notice and get back to you. My initial thinking is that the training delivered by Resilience Canopy is more around the process of developing and delivering the ideas that are presented by community groups looking for the funding for those particular projects. But I'll take that on notice and come back to you just with regards to specifics and, as you say, using that as an education stream for this policy. Yeah.
Councillor Saul?
Mayor, may I ask a question, please? Thank you. Madam Mayor, to the Acting General Manager and staff. We had significant floods in 1950 and 1963. They were well known to the farmers in Lower Macleay as they were quite devastating. Are they also kept in mind when we're doing our studies and those sort of things? Because I haven't heard much about them being mentioned.
Mr Jackson?
Yeah, all of the flood data that we have references back to previous floods on record with levels and things taken throughout and the models, various models calibrated according to those previous incidents. And they're all used as information that's fed through the various modelling tools to see how any future floods will work. And then obviously we've now had these climate change factors added over the top of that to evolve those models. But yes, all floods on record have been included, and right through to the 2001, 2013, and the more recent floods, they've all been included in the data sets.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more debate? Councillor Bain, would you like to close debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yep. Hearing, I'd just like to respond a bit to, firstly, Councillor Saul, like the flood data from the 1950, prior to the mitigation strategy. So I'd underline that point that Councillor Pakes has made as well, that there's a whole different, we're looking at a different ball game since the flood mitigation work of the 60s. I also hear what you're saying, Councillor Pakes, that there will be that the outcome of this policy is that there will be increased cost of development on the floodplain. However, I'd also like to, we need to keep in mind that what is the cost of inaction? What is the cost of not putting in these development controls? And that would be, the potential of litigation. And I believe that there's some areas in southern Queensland and northern New South Wales where councils are being litigated against for not or for allowing development in those areas. Ever increasing insurance costs, even to the point where there are areas now around Lismore where you can't get insurance for flooding because there's it's not worth the insurance companies can't pay out anymore. They can't insure properties on the floodplain. So we've got to take into account, yes, there'll be increased costs of future development, but there's also costs of inaction. So I would absolutely again commend this to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. I declare it carried. We now move to item 10.4, Disaster Ready Fund, round 3, proposed projects for grant application. Do we have a mover? Councillor Bain, do we have a seconder? Councillor Wyatt. Thank you, Councillor Bain. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think I have, absolutely full support for the first two the project on, again, the resilience and climate change strategy and implementation. 100%. The repair and increased resilience of the significant slips, and I have a hesitation about the second one, which is the Shingle Causeway program. That if we're looking at, we made a decision in the last council meeting not to put in a full rate increase. So we've got a hole of $2 million that we need to fill annually. Now, whether that gets filled through a loan, which I believe there's not appetite for, we've got to look at what areas we are going to cut costs in. And here's $1 million over 2 years. I understand that there are associated costs with with inaction, with not doing this work, that there are costs involved in going out and doing repairs after flood events, that there are issues of access for people that live in those areas of, we've got Fifes Creek Road, and I'm very familiar with all of the areas where these shingle works are proposed, because I've been in the RFS for 30 years and I've been out fighting fires in those areas. Significantly, access is limited when there's flooding, but in terms of disaster recovery for firefighting, when you've got flooding, it's rare that you get fires at the same time. Although, who knows what happens nowadays? Like, you can get a flood one week and a fire the next. So I just want us to be cognizant and have a think about whether how many people are going to benefit from these shingle causeways. And I know, people choose to live in isolated areas. They choose to live in isolated areas for specific reasons. They don't, and is it reasonable for our expenditure when we're in this financial situation to invest that additional $1 million? I understand that it means we're getting $1 million in grants, that we're doubling our impact, but the first two, the climate change one and the significance cutting program, there's not enough money in there to shift the dial, but there is in that second program. There's enough to shift the dial, and I'm not saying that I'm against it. I'm just saying that we need to give it some careful thought. If we're choosing not to have a rate rise, we did choose not to take on the rate rise, so there's got to be, there's got to be some consequences for that. And are those consequences, if we don't do this, it's it's going to impact a much lower percentage of the community. So I'm just asking my colleagues to have a think about that, and I'm welcome to hear a range of points of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. We'll have questions first and then we'll move into debate. Do we have any questions? Councillor Selby.
Yeah, just clarification, really. This says in this program will reduce flooding and environmental impacts in future disasters, but aren't we replacing like with like?
Mr. Jackson.
The shingle culvert, the shingle crossings will be replaced with precast concrete segments put in at the riverbed level, at the creek bed level. So no, we're not going to be replacing like with like. The shingles are effectively stones and can be washed away. So these concrete pieces will be anchored in, and there'll still be some maintenance associated with them, but not to the point now where we need to send out crews to essentially push all the rocks back into place after any significant event.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you.
Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. This is for the Acting General Manager, Mr. Jackson. So this is to make the application for the funding. So the funding hasn't been granted, but this is to make the application for the funding. My first question.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So there's no guarantee of this funding. Can I speak to this, or am I allowed to elaborate here, or am I only on questions? Yes. So to speak to the positives to shingle causeways in these flooding events, the reason I can speak to this is because I had family had property in that area 10 years ago. I spent most of my youth travelling up and down Vice Creek Road, Mackenzie Creek Road. I know what happens in floods and fires up there. So these places are isolated for extended periods of time, and they require council resources in the area post-event to go and fix access for 1, 5, 20 people, lots of different people. But they are essential for access for people's lives. This area, specifically where it's been highlighted these single crossings are going to be replaced, has been absolutely hammered by natural disasters since 2019, since the droughts and fires and floods since 2019. And it would be a welcome thing for the works to occur. I see benefits in the potential economies of scale if you've got to deliver a large number of these. We should get good at it. As an organisation, we should get efficiencies out of delivering a large number of this type of product. They are not like for like. To Mr. Councillor Shelby's point, they are not like for like, because once a shingle causeway is washed out, you have to put material back in to make it bring it up to a reasonable height. Now, some of these causeways can have 2 foot washed out of them, or a steep drop off as high as the desk, so you can't get vehicle access. So that's the whole point of making it a hard stand crossing, that it withstands a lot more. So yeah, I speak to it. Do I think it's value for money? 117,000 per causeway. In time, I think yes. I think this is a future improvement. Now, Walbro Brook Road was replaced with a concrete causeway, and it just changed the access to that area massively. And that's one of the link roads onto this area. So yeah, I think it's got major benefits. So I speak for it. Yeah, I think that's a good thing.
Thank you, Councillor Pakes. Do we have any more questions or any more debate? Councillor Coburn and then Councillor Wyatt.
Yes, I guess this carries on from what Councillor Bain was discussing in regards to financial sustainability. I guess one of the things that jumps out at me is when, as a councillor, if we're discussing or putting forward a proposal or an idea about additional works, we have to justify the impact on financial sustainability. And on more than one occasion, it's okay, well, if we're going to spend money on this, what are we not going to spend money on? So that's my question would be, if we're going to take on additional debt that's going to come out of the general fund, spending money out of the general fund, what are we not going to spend on to counteract for that expense?
Mr. Thorogood.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. The money that is allocated to these projects has been allocated from the unsealed rural road budget. So that's the budget that these roads fall within. So it's not additional money that we're allocating. It's already been allocated in the forward budgets for unsealed rural roads. If it was not to be spent on this, then it would be spent on different levels of maintenance or different types of maintenance on unsealed rural roads. To the point that Councillor Bain made in opening, if you were not to do these works realistically, and you did not do other works instead of these works, if you just said, let's can this program and we won't do other road maintenance in its place, we'll just reduce the road maintenance budget by this amount. In reality, the amount that you can probably save is closer to 200 to 250,000. $500,000 worth of these works are already committed to. There are 6 causeways on Fife Creek Road that we have a contractual obligation to upgrade. So that work is already committed in the forward budget. Of the remainder of the council's allocation, about half of that is staff time for the staff that we employ to do road maintenance. So if they're not working on this project, they're working on a different project somewhere else.
Councillor Coburn.
Okay. I guess then when I read this, it says there's already $500,000 that's allocated to this project in the draft budget for 25 to 26. And it's intended that a further 500,000 will be allocated in the 26-27 budget. So does that mean that $500,000 is an ongoing yearly allocation we can expect in budgets?
Mr. Thorogood.
Through you, Madam Mayor, The 500,000 in next year and the 500,000 in the following year has been allocated in order to do those crossings, which we sort of absolutely must do. It would then be a lesser amount. The intention of the original program was that over the next 10 years, essentially, we would chip away at these crossings year by year. So the opportunity to have it grant funded gives us an opportunity to accelerate that program and have it done either over 2 years or over under the grant funding program up to 5 years. That money could be expended over. So there certainly was a forward intention that there would be a lesser than the $500,000 allocation beyond the first 2 years, but there would be an ongoing allocation for around the next decade to these crossings.
Thank you, Mr. Thorogood. Councillor Bain.
Yes, I have a question, please. Mr. Thorogood, you suggested that there are some that we have to do that, and that we've already committed the money in the budget. But does that mean, is there any other further commitment that is there any contractual obligation, particularly on Fives Creek Road? Because I'm aware that Fives Creek Road is joins up with the Tooth Road bypass. That there's been massive amounts of work already done on that, which is was funded through disaster recovery. And wow, what a great road Fives Creek Road is now. But if we're going to finish it off by fixing those, are we contractually obliged to do those?
Mr. Thorogood.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we are contractually obliged to do the 6 along Fives Creek Road.
Do we have any other questions or any speakers for or against this motion? Councillor Matchett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to speak in favour of this. I don't see these as costs. I see them as an investment in our community and its resilience to the intense weather conditions that the region is prone to. As the risk of climate change increases, so do the costs, the associated costs of repairs and replacements. Isolated residents don't deserve to be punished by being cut off from essential services for extended periods of time due to extreme weather events. We need to treat our shire equitably in our CapEx and not base those decisions purely on where our most densely populated centres are. So these regions deserve that investment as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Matchett. Do we have any more debate? Councillor White.
Love that answer. That's a brilliant answer, because I was just going to share a story that some friends of mine up on Turrumbie Creek, a couple of families living on the one property, they're still isolated and their children still can't go to school after the past few weeks. And I saw a picture on a video that they shared where they are walking across their causeway, which is everything we say not to do, but they have to because they're isolated. So I 100% agree. And I don't think we should be making that choice of who gets to stay on their properties when they're flooded and who doesn't.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. Councillor Pakes, do you have a question? Because you've already spoken for the motion.
Okay, I have a question. I can shape it to a question. Through you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask the General Manager, Acting General Manager, Mr. Jackson, what potential gains for development in those areas, given that they will be a improved access? Do you think that may be a spike for development to occur in areas where the road improvements occur?
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, that's not the primary purpose of these improvements. If easier, more reliable access does drive development, that will be a need to be assessed through the normal planning processes. But certainly it could be a factor. However, it's certainly not the driver at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Do we have any more debate? If there's Councillor Coburn, do you have more questions?
Yeah, just a question. Yeah. My question relates to that forward budgeting process. So in light of the information that we've been given, I don't disagree with not assisting isolated residents within the community. I guess it's about that forward budgeting. So now with the addition of the extra $1 million that's going to be spent, I'm assuming that will have a positive impact on that forward budgeting then, and that will be reflected?
Mr. Thorogood.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, that is right. So over the long-term financial plan, the investment, if we are successful in gaining it through the grant funding program, would offset investment the council otherwise would have made in those future years at elevated costs in those future years. So certainly that will have a positive impact on the long-term financial plan ongoing.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? I'll invite Councillor Bain to close debate.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, thank you for the input. And thank you, Councillor Saul, for pointing out that we didn't accept the rate rise, but we in April, in the February meeting, we took a limited rate rise, but that still creates that $2 million hole. I note that that it is just an application that may not get approved, but if it does get approved, we're committed to doing it. As you know, as I learnt when we had the $7 million foreshore stabilisation project, that was once it's approved, we can't then turn around and say no, we don't want it because of the reputational risk, whatever the project is. And I really thank council staff for bringing implementing this new policy about bringing to us the proposed grant so that we can have an open and transparent discussion about it. I didn't understand until, I think it was mentioned in the briefing last night, that there is a contractual obligation on Fife Creek Road. So that, if 6 of those bridges, causeways, are already committed to, I can't see how, we can't not do it. So it would be self-defeating to say, oh, well, we'll save money by not doing it, when it's going to actually, what we're doing is getting money to help us. I also note that we had in January this year, we had $3 million funding in replacing causeways, which was replacing like for like. But this is a different story because it's putting in those causeways. I hear what you're saying. Thank you, Councillor Matchett, about the equity of everyone in the valley and the point of having access. So yeah, I'm convinced, and I fully support this proposal, the Disaster Ready Fund Round 3, and commend it to my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. I declare it carried. We now move to item 11.1, Delegates Report, Bushfire Management Committee. Mover, Councillor Bain. Seconder, Councillor Pakes. Councillor Bain, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yep, thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is there as read, but I just might point out some of the highlights of it. That in past practice has been, there's a subcommittee which looks at fire FAFT, which is basically fire trails, and they usually meet prior to the Bushfire Management Committee meeting, but there's new legislative requirements that those subcommittees have to meet 3 weeks prior so that they can inform the agenda of the Bushfire Management Committee, and it will be improve the level of reporting. There is a next generation risk management plan under development, which has new processes for assessing fire trails, and there's a new process of using it as a training process for RFS volunteers to go out, drive around their local area and assess the fire. And there's an electronic method for assessing the standard of the fire trails and what maintenance they might need. So annual works program targets are around hazard reduction, which is going to be a huge issue coming into this winter. We've had a very wet summer, as we know, and there's a very high fuel loading. So we need to be promoting safe hazard reduction, and the other process, and I thank Councillor White for her input from the last meeting, that community engagement has become has been now is included in every report that's asked from agencies. One of the sections that they'll be addressing is what have they done to improve community engagement. So thank you very much, Councillor White. We do make a difference here. Another change is that the grant funding is a permanent agenda item now. So Bushfire Management Committee members can raise issues to direct staff to seek funding, or agencies to share grant opportunities or successful grant applications. It's really warming to see that all of the agencies are working together so much better than they have in the past. And yep, what people have achieved is in the report. The seasonal update is, believe it or not, above average rainfall, which is somewhat patchy, with areas in the district receiving high rainfall, particularly coastal areas, and other areas significantly less. We've got higher temperatures than average, and there was a recommendation, although it seems in retrospect it seems a bit strange, but to maintain the fire danger period to 31st of March, so people will still require permits. At the end of 31st of March, people won't require permits, but they will still need to inform neighbours, and they'll still need to notify the RFS that they're burning, just to save, so that RFS volunteers don't get called out and waste their time. Yep, that's probably about it. Any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Councillor Pakes.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Just a question in regards to cultural burns. Is that something you've discussed at your meetings in the past? And is it a potential that, if formed, the Cultural Advisory Group may be of assistance to your committee?
There is a seat at the Bushfire Management Committee always for land councils, and unfortunately we don't get much response at this point. And I could foresee that will change in the near future. There'll be increased participation, and it's not actually. The State Forest has been doing work with First Nations communities. I think a First Nations advisory group could be very beneficial to encouraging culturally appropriate and burning with cooperation between landowners, First Nations communities, and the RFS and Fire and Rescue. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, supplementary to that. So is the administrative requirements for a cultural burn much less than the RFS one? I know it's quite detailed to do a hazard reduction, being involved in some in the area. Is a cultural burn require less administration than a RFS?
Correct.
Hazard reduction? Yeah.
Councillor Wyatt. Microphone.
To Councillor Bain, thank you for representing those interests around the community relations. I'm really grateful for you to do that, and to the members of the Bushfire Committee that have agreed to do that. Very grateful. Thank you for taking that up.
Thank you. Is there any more questions? Is there any debate? Councillor Bain, would you like to close?
No, I think that's enough. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. I declare it carried. We now move to item 11.2, notice of motion, Dunghutti-Thunghutti Advisory Group. Councillor Lawrence, would you like to move that one? Councillor White, would you like to second? Councillor Lawrence, would you like to move the motion?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Today I'm speaking on why the Kempsey Shire Council needs an Aboriginal advisory group. Many other councils have successfully established Aboriginal advisory groups, demonstrating the immersed value they bring to communities by fostering genuine collaboration, inclusivity and respect. It's time for Kempsey Shire Council to embrace this opportunity as well. There are several compelling reasons why this motion deserves your support. For the benefit of our community and the council, this advisory group will bridge historical gaps and support the Kempsey Shire in making informed, culturally aware decisions. To provide context, let me briefly touch on our history. In 1946, this very council enacted policies that prevented Aboriginal people from entering local shops, which led to profound division and exclusion. This decision, and others like it, left lasting impacts that still echo in our community today. By establishing an Aboriginal advisory group, we take a vital step towards righting past wrongs. This group will bring Aboriginal voices to the table, integrating their perspectives into decisions that shape our community's future. It will be a formal, culturally safe and respectful channel through which Aboriginal people can actively participate in the Council's decision-making processes. The advisory group will not only demonstrate our commitment to inclusivity, but also strengthen our community through open, respectful dialogue. We can ensure that the needs, insights and aspirations of Aboriginal people are heard and valued. This is a critical step towards building trust and ensuring a future where all members of our community feel respected and represented. I urge you today to vote in favour of this motion, to acknowledge our shared history and to take this important step towards a more inclusive, collaborative future for the Kempsey Shire. I just wanted to also to say to my fellow councillors, we're not looking for a handout, we're just looking for a hand up and to work together with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Do we have any questions? Councillor Wyatt.
I have a question, and I just wanted to make an amendment to point 1, which I sent through. Do you have it? So the amendment is just to, after act, a semicolon, noting that the name formally given to the group to be decided by its members. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
6.
Yeah. I mean, the intent is that the group itself gives itself its name.
Do you accept that amendment?
I do, yeah. Thanks, Councillor Wyatt. I just want to commend to Councillor Wyatt on all of the efforts and support that you've given this notice of motion throughout the journey since putting it up. I just want to thank you so much, and to Arthur, to Councillor Bain too. Thank you.
Councillor Wyatt, your question?
I do have a question. Just noting the table in the business paper, the norm, and it was a requirement of us to identify a cost and resourcing. Hence, there's an estimated, hence the table of the estimated cost. And those costs are internal, and it doesn't represent new money. It is an opportunity cost, which is it is an opportunity cost of something else not being done. Let's also note that Nambucca Shire has the same thing on its agenda tomorrow, and they have identified only $2,500 as requiring a catering fee. So my question is, can you please explain the statutory requirement and the rules in Kempsey Shire of the councillors to determine financial sustainability of a notice of motion that they put up, noting that it looks like an asking for additional cost?
Mr. Jackson.
The point of the financial sustainability query within notices of motion is to acknowledge that work is being done or work will be substituted for other work. So the estimate that you've prepared in terms of hours, which was then put together with charge rates for staff, has given an estimate of what is involved in by your calculations of actually running this group. And given that it's internal staff time, unless we were to bring in additional staff, those staff would be dedicating those hours to this project and not to another project. So it does produce that acknowledgement that other works will be put to one side if this work is prioritised.
Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah. And noting that I've put many notices of motion to council before, and in this section under the financial sustainability, I've said something along the lines of this won't cost external funds, but it will be an opportunity cost to staff, and that I didn't have available resources or access to make that decision, but I did on this occasion. So is this something that we could expect for any other notices of motion that councillors put forward, that we provide a staff resourcing cost?
Mr. Jackson.
Councillors should take into account that there is as you say, a cost or an opportunity cost associated with whatever's being proposed. You've been able to produce some estimates of hours that might be dedicated by staff to this matter. If councillors are unable to do that, they can work with the leadership team and work through, and we'll get you some information to provide you a similar estimate, so that you can provide that information in report for completeness and for the consideration of your colleagues. Yep.
Councillor Pakes and then Councillor Selby.
My question is around the process no later than September 25. Is it an opportunity to bring that date forward by 3 months, no later than June or July 1? Is that an opportunity? And I'd also ask for an amendment to the 24 months and say to be 8 meetings and 18 months, if that's an amendment that fellow councillors would come to, specifically Annette, because I would really love that this committee gets some momentum, and that would mean more meetings in the first 18 months. But once that momentum and direction came along, I would hope that then the 4 meetings per year would come into play, because they'd have their direction, strategy of what works and what doesn't work, and we can review at that point that we can celebrate what's happening or modify to make it work better. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Pakes. Just for your first question in bringing forward the expression of interest no later of September 25, do we have a staff response for that? Ms Davies?
I've already put in an amendment on that. Daniel's got it.
Yeah, Councillor Selby, we're just dealing with Councillor Pakes'
Yeah.
stuff, and then we'll come to you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Pakes, the logic, I guess, around the September 2025 was to allow the process to occur in the previous steps outlined in the recommendation. So if we're looking to establish the group for staff to prepare a draft terms of reference and actually undertake some consultation on those terms of reference, then have those actually reviewed by council at a future meeting, it's around the time that would take potentially to be able to draft the terms of reference, conduct some engagement with potential members to get feedback, amend the terms of reference, bring them to a council meeting, and then look to go out for expressions of interest with those terms of reference. If that's the process that we're looking to undertake, then I'd suggest that, was it June you'd suggested, is possibly ambitious.
It does say no later than September, so there is every possibility it could come in before then. But yeah, Councillor Pakes?
Yeah, the reason I come to that is through the revenue review process, and that the committee members actually highlighted that the terms of reference didn't really fit what was required. So you might find that we spend the time drafting terms of reference, and then we have wasted our time doing that because the committee comes up with when the process evolves a little bit, you might find the terms of reference need to be modified. So that's the reason I say that. Yeah.
Mr Jackson?
I guess that's why the proposal is to actually prepare a draft and actually do some consultation up front. It does allow the committee members, when they're looking to give an expression of interest, to at least understand that first pass of what's involved in the document. Once the committee is established, they would then review their terms of reference as their first task. But that's why it wouldn't just be staff developing those terms. They'd develop a draft, consult on them, and then issue a revised set with council's agreements out as part of the EOI, so the committee members know what they're getting in for and know what the direction is that's been through the community once, and then once they're together as a group, they'll review those again. But that's the process, and that's why that initial consultation is important, viewed as important by us and by the movers.
So another question from that. I know there's other councils doing it. Is there a wide spectrum of the terms of references on the table at the moment? Are they massively different, or is there a general theme that could be quite easily adopted? Well, say adopted, but yeah, have you got a comment on that? Because we're not reinventing the wheel. It's been done before.
So in terms of the terms of reference, I know there was some research done through the councillors involved in the workshop that was held on the topic. There are a number of different terms of references for different groups. So I guess in some ways they are similar, but obviously the proponents would claim they're quite different as well. So we'll have to have a good hard look at those, and that'll be part of that consultation process to put forward the differences and to see what the community think of those differences and which ones appeal or don't appeal to the community.
And I guess this is a financial sustainability approach, is that we do this efficiently and then let the group do the work, because that's they are a group of volunteers. They will be a group of volunteers turning up for nothing. We can burn a lot of money at the start, creating many staff hours trying to get terms of references that are going to be changed.
We have code of meeting practice, and you need to stick to that. You had foreshadowed an amendment. Do you want to move that? And did you send through some wording, which was would have been to amend? Would it have been 0.5?
Through you, Madam Mayor, my question. As Annette, Miss Lawrence, Councillor Lawrence has accepted my amendment.
You've accepted his amendment?
I'm happy to accept the 18 meetings, the 18 months, 8 meetings over 18 months. I think that was it. Yep, I'm happy to accept that. Thank you. Instead of the 24 on 0.5.
And Councillor Selby, your amendment was for 12 months.
No, I withdrew that one. The other one was on what we've just been speaking about, 4, commence it immediately instead of September. No later.
I'm happy with September if that's all right. Only because I want to ensure the proper process is had, and then staff obviously time, and given we've just come out of the disaster of the floods and stuff, I guess I'm happy with the current one if that's okay.
Yeah. So I'll withdraw what I suggested about can I withdraw the September? Sorry, support.
I will.
Councillor Lauren.
Yeah, that's fine. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Matchett.
Yeah, I just wanted to see, I recall in previous drafts, I think there was a number of around 9 to 11 people that would be represented on the council. Do we have an idea of how many people we would be looking to have as part of this group, or is that to be decided as part of the terms of reference?
Miss Lawrence, sorry, Councillor Lawrence. Ben, Councillor Pakes, you've got me all muddled up.
Yeah, I think in the notice of motion it does say a recommendation around it. We do have something in there, don't we? Yeah, we're not really committed to any numbers, Councillor Matchett, but I guess that will come in time in terms of collaboration and consultation around that. And having that diverse group, we really want to, have a diverse group and stuff as well. So when that expression of interest goes out, we want to see a diverse sort of community members apply to be on the group.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'll need your assistance, perhaps the acting GM assistance as well. I wish to move deferral. Would that be a foreshadowed or would that be amendment?
That's a procedural motion. What is your reasons for deferment? And when would you like it to be deferred to?
Madam Mayor, very simply, that this matter be deferred to the June 25 meeting of council. And the reason, shall I answer? Madam Mayor, I don't think there's enough people in the community know what's happening with our this proposed group. I would like more people to know about that. I'm not against it. I just would like a deferment until we have the whole community aware of what's happening, so they're brought along and not seen to be having input into it. So this morning we've said how important it was to be transparent, how important it was to be open. If you defer it till June, that allows the community to have a say and to feel a part of the process as well. So that's my deferral motion, Madam Mayor. Something simple like that.
Do you have a seconder? No, you don't have a seconder. Yeah. Do we have any more questions?
Can I ask a question to Councillor Saul?
You can, but he's not obliged to answer.
Yeah, that's fine. I just had a question, Councillor Saul. Last night at the public forum, there was a speaker that mentioned about the group being reinstated, because there was a group back in the 2000s, like an Aboriginal advisory group back in the 2000s. You've been around for a long time. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on it with how it happened back then.
Madam Mayor, I don't think I was on council at that time, so I don't believe I have the answers there.
Yeah, that's all right, Councillor Saul.
No worries, thank you.
Councillor Pakes.
A question about the chair of the organisation or the committee, and how that person might be selected. I have my own thoughts on who would be a great chair for it. I haven't asked the person yet, but yeah, how is Councillor Lawrence got any input firstly, and then yeah, any other experience from
Councillor Lawrence, and then we'll.
As I said before, I think it's important that the collaboration with community and putting that out there to community to see who comes forward around that. So I think it's a bit of a timeline, I guess, with how that would work. So thanks.
Ms Davies.
Through you, Madam Mayor, typically the appointment of the chair would be something that would be dealt with through the terms of reference for the group. So as Councillor Lawrence suggests, that's something that could be discussed when we were consulting on that draft terms of reference.
Right, thank you. Do we have any more questions? Do we have any debate? Councillor Bain.
Yes, I'd like to speak in favour of this motion. You'll notice in the attachments there's the a comparative study of the councils in our Office of Local Government Group 4. So the largest, the council, equivalent council with the largest Indigenous population is Dubbo with 16.6%, and they have a multicultural advisory committee rather than a First Nations group, but they also have a social justice advisory committee, and 20% of their councillors are First Nations peoples. We are the second highest with 12.9%, and we have RAP and cultural heritage is dealt with reconciliation action plan, and cultural heritage is dealt managed under our development control plan, chapter B12. Cessnock has 10.2%, and they have a First Nations advisory group. Singleton 8.3%, and they have an advisory group. Armidale 7.6%, they have an advisory group. Eurobodalla with 6.1% have an Aboriginal a First Nations advisory group, as do Lismore with 5.9%, and Albury with 3.69%. So there's a clear appetite in communities for this. There's also a lot that don't have them. I'd like to draw councillors' attention to the Closing the Gap partnership with the role that councils play in the Office of through the Office of Local Government. There's a priority reform to form formal partnerships between local government and First Nations communities. In terms of deferral, I know we're not deferring this. The original the idea first came up in October, and then Councillor Lawrence put it in November last year. It's already been deferred. If there's anyone that's not aware of what's going on, they're not paying attention. I'll respectfully propose. There is a proposal through Learning the Macleay to set up a coalition of Aboriginal peak organisations. This would work hand in glove with a First Nations advisory group of council. The Coalition of Aboriginal Peak Organisations, or a CAPO, would be, as it states, organisations. So that would be the non-government organisations and other Aboriginal organisations that exist. And potentially there could be a seat at that table for someone from a council First Nations advisory group, as there could be a seat at the First Nations advisory group table for a representative from the Coalition of Aboriginal Peak Organisations. It's time that we took some action, and it's time that we address the long-term issues of cultural ignorance is too hard a term, lack of cultural awareness in our community. That's been demonstrated, unfortunately, last week or so. But yeah, I would really encourage us to say this is an opportunity to make some change. This is an opportunity. If we do what we've always done, we'll get what we've always got. This is a new strategy, a new way, and it's not brain surgery. It's absolutely supported by the Office of Local Government, and let's get on and have a crack at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Just in reference to your earlier comment, this wasn't actually published in October, they were deferred.
Correct, but it was first raised, so it's raised with us, but then it was published in November, so like that's going.
No, they weren't published.
No, it was in the papers of November. It was deferred by the General Manager.
Yeah, but it never got published. It was a notice of deferment for them, so they weren't actually visible in the paper.
The
So
notice of deferment was not visible to the public. Is that what you're saying?
So the notice that the motions were deferred, but the actual content was not there, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so it was a notice of deferment of
Title.
the title. So did the title include First Nations Advisory Group?
Yes, but not the entire information is what I have said.
Yeah, but people have been alerted to it, the fact that it's an issue. Yeah.
Councillor Wyatt.
I would like to speak in favour of the motion, and I want to present some truth telling as an ally of First Nations people, and what I might about to say might be upsetting to some people, which I apologise in advance. On the 13th of May 1770, Captain Cook sailed up the coast here, and writing in his journal outside Smoky Cape, said at a point on a headland on which the fires that caused great quantity of smoke, called it smoke, which occasioned me giving the name Smoky Cape. They were the fires of the Dunghutti people, fires in the plumes of smoke from the Dunghutti people. And then the 29th of April 1770, they arrived in Macleay, which is Botany Bay, where they encountered the Aurora and Dharawal nations. Despite the evidence of this, the doctrine of terra nullius was adopted, which means the land belongs to no one, and it was used to disperse, and the inhumane treatment of First Nations people. Terra nullius falsely claimed an absence of civilised people, ignoring the fact that First Nations people had a very sophisticated system of law, governance, agriculture, land management, cultural expression. And this system of social civilisation wasn't communicated in books. It was communicated through landscape, engraved into rocks, paintings, song lines, oral histories and storytelling as a passing on of cultural practices, telling society how civilization functioned. We know that terra nullius was overturned in 1992 by the Mabo decision, which affirmed that Aboriginal people had an enduring connection to the land. 2016 and 2017, I studied community services at TAFE, where I sat in deep, deep discomfort, learning about the continuous waves of dispossession of Aboriginal people inflicted by Aboriginal Australian laws and policies, such as the Aboriginal Protection Act of 1909, giving authorities control over Aboriginal people's lives, dictating where they lived, worked and who they associated with, the establishment of the welfare boards, which enabled the forced removal of children, leading to stolen generation, the confinement of people to reserves under strict control, assimilation and segregation, which sought to erase culture, language and identity, only allowing people to integrate once deemed fit, whatever that means. My colleague and I used to drive around national parks in the Macleay, and he'd sit low in his car and he'd talk to me about ancestors. But he also would point out to me the places where he had to run. His mum told him and his siblings, run away, the government's coming. So he pointed out all these places in the lower, and he'd hide for days. At the Kinchilla Boys' Home 50 years recently, I learnt of another colleague that was taken to Cootamundra Girls' Home and her brothers to Kinchilla. She also told me that her mother was taken. So that's 2 generations. They were kidnapped and stolen. Again, in my work, I would often travel around the New England Highway and we'd pass Bluff Rock. And one day, there's a couple of colleagues in there, one day his colleague kind of said to me, my grandfather was involved in the massacres there where Aboriginal men, women and children were thrown to their deaths. These events are not distant history, they are living memory. There's hundreds of massacres across New South Wales, and here in the Macleay bear witness to that, and we must confront these truths and not look away. In the 1970s, National Parks and Wildlife Service undertook an archaeological survey of the Macleay, and my dear friend and colleague, along with a respected elder who I won't name out of respect for that person, they went and did a recording of sites, and the prevailing theory at the time was that Aboriginal culture was no longer living because of those false historical policies designed to erase it. But as they travelled around New South Wales, they found undeniable proof that culture had survived. And since then, we've had a whole lot of legislation and policies around racial discrimination, land rights, reconciliation, cultural safety and healthcare and education, cultural knowledge and land management, all in respect of First Nations cultural identity. But there are still great injustices evidenced through high rates of incarceration, deaths in custody, shorter life experiences, poor health outcomes. Some of these things that Closing the Gap is trying to address. I'm deeply saddened at the recent exposures of entrenched racism that played out in the media, social media, and in conversations last week, and comments that made to me directly. I was told that an Aboriginal people were denied entry to the pub, which was, a painful echo of the past, including a woman that I deeply admire and respect that told me to sit in discomfort with those truths. And we recently had the commemoration of the 60 years freedom, which fought to dismantle segregationist policies. Yet here we are, witnessing the same injustices. I've worked in land management for years here in the United States. This group must be approved as a dedicated communication platform where First Nations people can engage meaningfully and safely in the decision-making process, to deny which is just ongoing, perpetuating the disrespect for the respect and rights of First Nations people. 1 minute to go.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. Do we have any more questions or any debate? Councillor Pakes?
I can speak for the motion through you, Madam Mayor. Yep. I totally accept and appreciate the sentiment of Councillor Bain and Councillor Wyatt, but I see the advantage here is for the future. This is for the future. This isn't for today. It's for what will occur in the years going forward. And the words of someone who supported this, Mark Morrison, he said, this is a no-brainer. That was his words. This is a no-brainer. And I agree 100%. I think this is a no-brainer. I know my community. I'm out in it often with fire and rescue in all different places. And I know the great people on the ground. So this is a no-brainer. And the published costs of this are an amount. However, I think there's greater savings for the community. If administered correctly, this could be a real game changer for community cohesion, information sharing, understanding of events, support with events, potential new events, things we haven't even considered yet. So the initial input cost is limited. Now, with my experience with Revenue Review Group, we got 3 quality applicants who were absolutely committed to making the Macleay better. We are now putting up we will, if passed, put up a request for 9 to 11 quality applicants. They are all going to turn up for everyone in this room at no cost. The cost is only through council staff. So there will be nobody paid to turn up to that committee. They are a committee of volunteers who are passionate about their community and will bring their specific expertise and knowledge to the committee. So the costs, I think, are probably overstated in my opinion. I don't think the costs will be anywhere near as much as what's in the document. And as for consultation, I actually had a conversation last night with a member of the public who was concerned. And as soon as I spoke about everyone turning up as a volunteer, and that information got to her, she said, oh, wow, that means like 11 people, 9 to 11 people are going to turn up in a committee and put their time to this, to making the place better and to understanding and to doing a better thing. Well, why wouldn't you do that? So once the information got out there, it actually changed the person's perception, because they contacted me over the weekend and I didn't have the information to give to them after the briefing last night. I did. And so they were actually quite enheartened at that position. And also, this is an opportunity to show leadership to our community. So as a group of people, we're going to lead in a different direction. And it's not what we've done always. It's something that has happened before, but we have a chance to make it even more effective this time. So if we want to do the same old thing, well, we'll do nothing. But we don't want to do the same old thing. We want to do something that will change the dialogue between council and the community. And this is about changing that dialogue and getting it out there openly. The benefits are beyond what's in the documents presented, I believe the benefits will be far beyond that. I can see benefits through potential cultural burn information. I can see cultural events. I can see there's lots of sporting connection to sporting events. I can see lots of other potential spin-off benefits. So, yeah, I commend this to our councillors to endorse it unanimously, and give it a go. Speak positively of it, and let's get the community on board with this. Let's do it well.
Thank you, Councillor Pakes. Do we have any more speakers? Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just highlighting Councillor Pakes' comments that the reason why I put the deferral motion up was to bring the community into knowledge of what's happening in today. I don't feel they are fully aware, respectfully. There is certainly a lot of conjecture out there about what it means. Had we put the deferral motion up, allowed 2 months so council, staff, councillors can explain to all and sundry what it means. If we don't do that today, it could be another reason for division. So if we don't accept the deferral motion, which we haven't, I'll have to vote against it.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. Do we have any more? Councillor Lawrence, would you like to close debate?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to commend my fellow colleagues for supporting the NOM and speaking with the truth telling, and the storytelling was really powerful. Yeah, I just wanted to commend that and thank you so much for all of your efforts. And I also just wanted to I guess reiterate the fact that we did do a presentation to councillors and staff February meeting, which presented a whole lot of information, statistics, and as to why it's important that we vote this in today. So I just want you to think about all of those the reasons behind it, and to also thank the community that openly volunteered to do a video to present, that I presented at the meeting as well. So that was really, I feel, powerful as well for us to all take in the knowledge and the input, as Councillor Pakes mentioned with Mark Morrison. He mentioned it's a no-brainer. So I just wanted to echo that, and yeah, I understand that. Yeah, just want everybody to understand that it's important pathway to moving forward and working together. So I urge you all to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is one dissent. I declare it carried. We'll now move to our confidential. I need a motion to move into confidential.
Teal.
We have one item left. I think we should just persevere. Motion for confidential. Councillor Pakes, seconded by Councillor Matchett. Sorry, if you're in the gallery, you'll have to leave. Sorry.
In relation to the matters considered by Council in confidential session and earlier as items passed by exception, in relation to item 12.1 legal matters, Council resolved that Council receives and notes the report. In relation to item 12.2, tender evaluation for the Aquatic Engineering and Design Services TQE 24/47, Council resolved that reject all tenders in T24/47 for the assessment and design of aquatic infrastructure in Kempsey Shire, and 2, enters into negotiations with the preferred supplier Facility Design Group to deliver a modified scope of work. In relation to item 12.3, management, lease and operation of Kempsey and South West Rock swimming pools, TQE 24/56, Council resolved that Council 1 accepts the tender submitted by Leisure and Recreation Group Proprietary Limited for the management, lease and operation of Kempsey Macleay Swimming Pool Complex, TQE 24/56, for a period of 3 years commencing 1 July 2025. And 2, accepts the tender submitted by South West Rocks Aquatics Proprietary Limited for the management, lease and operation of South West Rock Swimming Pool Complex, TQE 24/56, for a period of 3 years commencing 1 July 2025. In relation to item 12.4, affordable housing project, Council resolved that Council 1 approves the sale of Lot 1 DP 1086155, Lot 2 DP 343166, Lot 3 DP 343166, Lot 11 DP 629855 and Lot 12 DP 629855 to the preferred community housing provider for $1 consideration, 2 delegates to the General Manager pursuant to Section 377 of the Local Government Act 1993, authority to sign either by electronic means or otherwise contracts for sale of land and any other documents necessary or desirable to complete the transaction. 3, approves that all housing developed on the land be designated as affordable housing secured by a community housing assistance agreement. And 4, notes that the General Manager will approve the tender process to appoint a CHP, accept the preferred tenderer and enter into a heads of agreement, lease agreement and development deed at the relevant time under delegated authority.
Thank you, Mr. Thorogood. That concludes our business today. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you, councillors, for your contributions.